think I've said this so many times. There is never a dull day in the field of Canadian immigration. There is always something to talk about. There is always something to know. There is always something to learn. There is always something to get excited about. Of course, there are also instances when you're not so excited about what's happening. But I'm talking about Canadian immigration, news, updates, things that happen, things that make us excited, things that make us very happy. And I'm back here with another episode of the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Today is even more exciting because some new changes were made, rather have been announced by IRCC yesterday. And we will talk about that. And these are primarily relating to people who are already inside Canada, permanent residents and citizens who applied for their spousal sponsorship, but now can obviously look forward to getting their work permits issued and their TRVs issued. Obviously, there was also an express entry draw this week, and scores slightly higher, but we're going to talk about that. And of course, there have also been some PNP draws this week. All of this we are going to talk in today's weekly roundup, starting with our quote of the week. Let's get back here. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. Quote by Jimmy Dean, which is so true. Obviously, there are so many things in our life which we can't control. But often we focus on the things that we can't control and we feel bad, we feel negative, we feel disappointed, we feel depressed, we feel frustrated, we feel impatient, we feel all these things and much more. But those are the things that you can't control anyway. So instead, if you can then, or rather divert your focus, your attention to things that you can control, things that are in your hands, things that you can do. For example, your own self, in the sense like instead of focusing on those, look at things that you can do in the meantime while you're waiting for certain things, or what you can readjust with, or you can re-strategize, or you can think of other ways of getting to the same place. Then you will realize and you will find that there might be more than one ways to get there. And therefore, as this quote says, that if you cannot, obviously you can't change the direction of the wind, right? Wind is not in your control, but you can change your sails to take the advantage of those winds and then still reach your destination. So true, so real to life, and so something which you can definitely apply. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date with the news, trends, PNP draws, quite a few this week. British Columbia, 16th of May, invited 202 candidates in 3 draws. There were 162 who were invited from 3 streams in a general draw, meaning there was no occupation specified. There were also 2 draws targeting 29 early childhood educators and 11 healthcare professionals with a minimum score of 60. The candidates in the skilled worker categories required a minimum score of 104, which is slightly high. International graduates needed a score of 107, which is also high, but the semi-skilled candidates required a score of only 85, which is quite reasonable. Manitoba on the 18th of May conducted a draw in 3 different categories. The first one was occupation-specific draw for 287 candidates, but the knock code was 7330, transport and transit drivers. You will probably see more of driver positions coming up in different provinces as we move forward. They required a minimum score of 610. The second skilled worker draw was not occupation specific, but they invited 191 candidates, getting a score of 701 as minimum. There were also 27 candidates invited from skilled worker overseas category with a minimum score of 721. Now, this is really high, especially for people who are outside Canada. 721, really difficult. I wouldn't say really difficult, but yes, definitely high. 21 candidates were invited from the international education stream who did not need any score. The government of Manitoba has also announced this week that the province will now provide additional $4 million to 24 newcomer service provider organizations whose projects were selected through the newcomer community integration support, which basically means they will now be able to offer more services, more benefits to people who are coming to Canada as newcomers, as new immigrants, and can avail these services free of cost. On the 18th of May, Ontario also conducted a draw. This was for the skilled trades stream, skilled trade categories. And the reason we are still talking about the previous week's draw is because last week, obviously, we did not have a weekly roundup. So it's a combination of the 2 weeks. And so we're talking about some draws which are slightly older, but hey, we're going to talk about them anyways. The province invited 1,694 candidates in skilled trade occupation with a CRS score that ranged from as low as 250. That is really low. And went right up to 482, which is usually 1 point lower than the last express entry draw. At that time, it was 483. So 482 was the high cutoff. For people who are wondering how they can also get involved, or rather get into this draw, well, for you, you don't have to do anything different. You just need to have an active express entry profile. But this draw is specifically for candidates who have work experience in Ontario within the last 2 years of at least 1 year, and in a skilled trade that has been indicated on their website. So this is absolutely a great program for people who cannot score very high on the CRS. Could be age, could be IELTS, could be education, but definitely have work experience in a skilled trade. This is something which they can look at for sure, for certain. Saskatchewan on the 18th of May held its second draw of the month. The province invited 260 candidates under the OID occupation and demand streams. 784 candidates were invited in the express entry stream. Both categories required a score of only 67. The scores are coming down with Saskatchewan, which is great. These are the knock codes. I can see a lot of IT related knock code. I can see a few healthcare knock codes as well. I can also see a couple of other generic knock codes. 62100 is there, 72401 here, 92100 here. So yeah, a combination of knock codes that were selected, but the score was only 67. Once again, if you are in IT, well, these are bumper draws that keep happening for you guys. So, take advantage of it. Prince Edward Islands on the 18th of May held its second draw of the month, invited 155 candidates under its labor and express entry stream. These candidates needed a minimum score of 65 to be considered. Now, Prince Edward Islands has been misunderstood by a lot of people as an option which they can have. Unfortunately, it's not really an option if you're not in the province, if you're not inside Canada, because it's the smallest province. The quota for nomination is also quite low, and they obviously prefer to have, or rather invite those people who are inside their province. I know a lot of agents out there try and I wouldn't say scam, but try and mislead you that aapki file lodge kar denge PEI mein, or we will lodge your file, we'll create your profile for you on PEI. Well, you can create your profile for sure, but the chances of getting invited with PEI are quite unlikely if you do not have any connection to the province. But if you are in the province of Prince Edward Islands, then this is a good news. The score of only 65, which is not very high. Express entry. Now, this is a favorite subject for all of us. On the 24th of May, IRCC invited candidates in the 13th express entry draw of 2023, issuing 4,800 invitations. Let's look at this one instead. This was draw number 249. CRS score went up to 488. Went up by 5 points. The previous score was at 483 for the all program draw. Obviously, the last draw was a PNP. This draw happened almost after a month. The previous draw was on the 26th of April. This one was on the 24th of May. This was, as I said, an all program draw. The scores did go up to 488. Now, when we look at the pool breakdown, it gives you pretty much the similar pictures that we have been seeing for the last few weeks, for the last few draws. Not a lot of people getting added between the scores of 501 to 600. And I have a feeling that a lot of people have stopped declining their ITAs, because I guess with one PNP draw that happened in between and no program draw happening, they got freaked out. They decided not to decline their ITAs, and that's why you see probably lesser number of people. But then again, this also tells you that people don't really have to decline their ITAs in a lot of cases, because in most cases, there is a way out, there is a way around, there is a way to continue with your application without declining your ITAs. I have never ever been in favor of declining ITAs. I never promote, I never advocate, I never am of the opinion that an ITA should be declined until and unless, of course, there is a material mismatch of information. There is something drastically wrong in your profile, drastically which will impact, and you will not have the same score if you proceed. Then yes, by all means, decline the ITA, correct that information, come back into the pool, and then obviously look for the next one. In most cases, people get freaked out when they get additional points, even before they have completed their 1 year of work experience. That is the most common reason why a lot of people will decline their ITAs. Well, for them, IRCC is aware of this. This is a system glitch, because when it was designed with the month year. And what it does is, when you put your starting month and ending month for your work experience, or your current month as ongoing, the system includes both these months also as part of your work experience, therefore giving you points earlier than you were eligible for those points, probably few weeks or a month, and sometimes even 2 months in advance. Now, you can continue excuse me, you can continue with your application if at all you're absolutely certain that you can submit the application after you have completed the legal valid period of work for which you're claiming those points. If you can do that, then please continue with your application, please continue with your ITA. There is no problem there at all. Also, sometimes people decline the ITA just because they have made some minor errors. For example, they started their education in the month of April, but they have mentioned May, or they mentioned March, a difference of a month. Or, for example, they have written the name incorrectly. There's a spelling mistake, there's a spelling error, or sometimes they've forgotten to add their middle name. All of these can be corrected. There is no problem. Sometimes you can add a letter of explanation. Sometimes the knock code is different that you have added in your original profile, but now you've received the ITA. And now you're thinking, my knock code is different. Can I continue? Should I not continue? Should I change it? Should I not change it? You can change it. All these changes you can make in your application. There is no problem. I have handled hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications by making these changes, because so often clients come to us only after receiving their ITA, or rather we take clients only if they have received their ITA or they're close to receiving their ITA. Otherwise, we don't even accept those clients, right? Because we don't want to waste your money and you waiting and being on hold. But the point is that yes, we do make changes all the time. I can hardly think of a profile where a change was not needed. In most cases, there are changes needed. So the point is that you can make changes, as I said, as long as the scores are not impacted, as long as there isn't a material change in information which can drastically impact of you proceeding, then of course you should decline your ITA. But in most cases, I will just explain to you, there is no reason for you to decline your ITA. Please continue, because every time you decline your ITA, you're taking away somebody else's spot, and also in some way or the other impacting the score. So don't do that, because you don't want to be on the other side, right? And you don't know how Express Entry is behaving. Inconsistent, unpredictable. Tomorrow they may happen. Kal ho ya na ho, kal ho na ho wali baat ho jati hai. So don't do that, and take your ITA and proceed with it. Now, as far as the Express Entry is concerned, what are we looking at? The draw number increase in the 491 plus range was 1,731 profiles. The number of profiles remaining in the Express Entry pool as of the 24th of May, when the profile pool breakdown was issued, 3,777. Because the number of profiles keep getting added, obviously newer people come into the pool. Again, people do decline their ITAs regardless of how much we tell them not to do that. But again, then the next, based on this, if the number of ITAs remain the same of what they have been issuing, about 3,500, and if they do conduct the next draw in Express Entry, which is approximately on 7th of June, then in my opinion, the scores may be within the range of 484 to 487. I don't expect a big drop. I might not expect a drop at all, because it all depends on how many people get added into the pool and how many invitations are issued. If the number of invitations issued are big, for example, this time it was 4,800. Let's say they issue another draw of 4,800. Then you can see the scores dropping to 484-ish, 483, 484. But if they stick with 3,500 ITAs, then you could expect a similar score of 486, 487, maybe even 488. They stick to the same number because of the number of people in the pool and how many get added. That's how it's looking like at this point of time. The number of invitations issued in 2023 is already nearly 50,000. The average invitations for 2023, in my opinion, is 80,000. That's what I expect. Give or take few, of course, it will never be accurate. The candidates in the Express Entry pool as of that date, 24th of May, were 226,842. The quotas for 2023 are 82,880 plus 35,000 for PNP, which are linked to Express Entry. The expected number of draws that are remaining in this year is about 12 to 13. Bill C-19, we expect to be, we expect that it will be introduced by second half of this year. Let's see when that happens. In other news, and that's where we get very excited, Immigration Minister yesterday announced measures to strengthen family reunification. Now, what he was referring to is, and this was also part of the mandate letter that was issued to him when he became the Immigration Minister, and one of them was to strengthen the family, or rather, create more pathways or bring in changes so that the family reunification becomes a priority, whereby it's often seen. And out of the total immigration quotas for each year, you have roughly 70 to 80,000 people who become permanent residents by way of spousal sponsorships. Okay. Now, spousal sponsorship basically are of two types: inside Canada and outside Canada, which basically means if your spouse is inside Canada living with you. When I'm saying spouse, please, I also mean common law partners. So I cannot, because it's a mouthful of words, so I'm just going to say spouses, but you understand it's common law partners as well. All right. So for that, just a small disclaimer there. So if your spouse is inside Canada, so when I'm referring to spouse, I mean the spouse who has to be sponsored, who at this point of time is foreign national, has no connection to, who does not have a status in Canada. The sponsor here in this case means a person who is already a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. So these are the two categories of people who can sponsor their families. Now, family here means spouse, common law partner, or dependent children. So two types of sponsorship applications. First one is under the family class. Family class is outside Canada. A person is outside Canada's the principal applicant, who is the spouse outside Canada, family member outside Canada, and inside Canada, which is under the spouse common law partner program inside Canada. It's called SCLC, spouse common law partner program. Okay. SCLC, which is inside Canada program, would normally or typically allow or makes or allows the spouse to also apply for open work permit as part of the fact that they're applying for inside Canada sponsorship application. Now, the two very distinct difference between these two things: outside Canada, you could not apply for an open work permit, but you were eligible for an appeal if your spousal sponsorship application was refused. This is a family class. SCLC, spouse common law partner program inside Canada, you were allowed, or rather you were eligible for an open work permit, but you did not have a right to appeal in case your spousal sponsorship application was refused. Okay. Obviously, also it also meant that you are inside Canada, and the reason you're being given this advantage or the provision for applying for your work permit is because you are inside Canada. Therefore, travel in and out of Canada was not really recommended. Okay, but where outside Canada means you can, even if you have a visa to come in Canada, you can come in and go inside. So these are the two distinct advantages. But what that basically also meant that for people who are outside Canada, family class, they had to stay away from their sponsor because the sponsor needs to be in Canada at the time of application and needs to continue maintaining their primary residence in Canada. Traveling for a long duration of time while the application is progress is not recommended, not looked favorably. It could also mean that your primary residence is not in Canada and therefore the application gets refused. But that also meant that if the sponsor is going to be in Canada, the spouse is going to be outside Canada, and sometimes these spousal sponsorship applications can take a year or more. We know that, right? During COVID, it was taking 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years in some cases, which basically meant that the families are not united, right? So they have to live separately, which can, as you can imagine, can have some very severe emotional stress, mental stress on both the partners, and sometimes can also separate families permanently. Long distance relationships are always troublesome, can also be stressful. And therefore, under the family reunification, they have made several changes. What the changes are: first of all, even if you're applying under family class, so even if your application is under family class, which basically means your spouse is outside Canada, you can apply for an open work permit now if your spouse comes to Canada. So the provision is still there for an open work permit, but earlier it was only for SCLC. And I know this sounds a bit confusing, and I know it can be confusing. So, for example, let me clarify this for you. If you're applying under the family class, if you're outside Canada, but you have a visit visa, you come into Canada, this does not change your category. You still remain a person who is applying for an application outside Canada, means your application will be processed by a visa office outside Canada. So just because you traveled into Canada, you've got a visit visa, or you somehow managed to get a different study permit, work permit, or whatever, you've come into Canada, that does not change your category. You are still going to be an applicant whose application is being processed outside Canada. But now, because you are inside Canada, with this new change, you can now apply for an open work permit. Of course, for people who are inside Canada already, if you're applying for spousal sponsorship, you could apply for an online work permit. That was an open work permit, and that was already the option. Also, further, what has been a big change, which I really love, and that is now spouses can apply for TRV. TRV stands for temporary residence visa, which is also referred to as visit visas. Earlier, also you could apply for visit visas, but in most cases they were refused, and they were refused primarily because your spouse is inside Canada, your sponsor, and that is seen as a very strong tie to Canada, means you have no reason to return back. And therefore, it was decided, or it was understood, that you will have no reasons to return back. Hence, your ties to your home country are weak, and hence you will be a person who will stay beyond their validity of visa, and therefore your application for visit visa is refused. Almost 70 to 75% of applications for TRVs in such cases were refused. However, now, under this new change that they have announced, not only will your application be considered favorably, but you should apply for your TRV only after getting your file number or AOR of your spousal sponsorship application. Under the dual intent, you can apply for TRV. But not only will they be processed favorably, they will also be processed in a 30-day period flat. So you can apply for TRV, come to Canada. Within 30 days, your application should be approved while your PR application is still being processed. But hey, hold on. This is the good thing. Now that you are inside Canada on a TRV, apply for an open work permit. Okay, that is the good news. That is how to get around this and still be able to apply for an open work permit, which is brilliant. At least there is a provision, right? Earlier there was no provision. So now you don't have to stress out about the wait of a long duration of processing time. At least you can be with your spouse, partners can be together, the families can be reunited, sometimes children as well. And if your children are above the age of the age that is allowed to work in Canada, even the children can apply for the open work permit. They will also be allowed. The dependent children will also be allowed to apply for open work permit. Earlier that was not the provision. I think that is brilliant. I think this change that has been finally announced, this was long due. This they should have done long back, but thankfully now this has been done, and this is a great initiative. Before I move on to others, these are the links. The links are all in the description box of the YouTube video, so you don't have to worry about this. This was the open work permit applying as a sponsor, spouse, or common law partner in Canada. Here it says you can apply for open work permit if you are one of the following: spouse, common law partner, conjugal partner living in Canada who's being sponsored for permanent residence, or an accompanying dependent child of the principal applicant. So in both the cases, you will be able to apply. The application is not difficult. You don't need consultants, you don't need lawyers, you don't need agents to handle this application. A lot of times people get confused. They think, oh, they need somebody who really understands. No, the link is in the description box. This website is pretty good. All you need to do is follow everything. Here it says how to apply for an open work permit. I mean, can't be any more simpler, right? It says, for the main steps to apply, see how to apply for a work permit. Below are the steps. You have to choose yes or no. If you choose you have a valid temporary residence status, it will give you the steps. If you choose no, obviously, then you cannot apply for the work permit, because then you're not eligible. You need to first apply for TRV, come to Canada, then you can apply for open work permit. But if you choose yes, and as you scroll down, it will tell you exactly what you need to do. You need to get your AOR letter. AOR letter basically is your acknowledgement of receipt. You usually get that once your sponsor has been approved as a sponsor, and that basically is also called the stage 1 approval or approval in principle. And then you can apply for the open work permit. You must apply online. There is no applying at the border, flag polling, no such thing. You have to apply online. Below are the extra steps to follow for the open work permit. Here everything has been listed. It's not complicated at all. The minute you go to your GCK account, you click on Come to Canada option. There you say you want to apply for a work permit, and then it says, does the following criteria apply to you? And you will say yes to the following question. I am applying for an open work permit under the active public policy or pilot program. Just say yes to that. And you will then fill out the application form. What type of work permit you're applying for? You will choose open work permit. This would be in the application form number 5710. And you will, in the job title and brief description of duties, you will mention SCLC, FCOWP. FCOWP, I don't know why they make it so difficult, but yeah, OWP stands for open work permit. I'm not sure what FC stands for. Could be family class, of course, because that's what it would mean. SCLPC basically means spouse, common law partners inside Canada class. And yeah, and that's just about it. That's all you need to do. Follow the website. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You don't need anything technical. Family information form you need to complete, IMM 0008. You please provide the copy of that. Provide the copy of your AOR that shows your permanent residence application is complete for processing. Okay, that is one of the important documents. And pay the fee, $255 for the open work permit, and you will pretty much be sorted. Okay, so do this and you will hopefully be able to get through with your application. Now, there's another thing. Yesterday, and again, the links, as I said, and the description, you don't have to worry. Another one important announcement that IRCC made was that open work permit extensions for open work permit holders are also going to be facilitated. Now, what that basically means is that people who have open work permits in Canada, and these open work permits could be for different reasons, spouse, I think they're mainly spouse open work permits. The exact description has been given here, and I will go through that with it in a bit. But this spouse open work permits, if they were expiring between, or rather they are expiring between August 1 and 31st of December 2023, then you will be eligible for a simplified process for an extension for 18 months. Also brilliant. Now, obviously, there are lots of questions that people will have because this basically applies to international students, foreign workers, right? These are the categories of open work permit holders who will be allowed. Open work permit are available to foreign nationals in number of different situations, but not all will be eligible for an extension. It will only be offered to permanent residence applicants who are waiting for a decision on their PR application and their spouses. So permanent resident applicants who are waiting, these are primarily those candidates. For example, you came through a PNP program, Atlantic Immigration Program, RNIP program, British Columbia. So these applicants, when they get a PNP, they are also allowed to apply for a work permit. In some conditions, it might be an open work permit. In some conditions, it might be a closed work permit. Also, people who apply for bridge open work permit, again, their spouses. Now, all of these will be eligible to apply for an open work permit under this simplified process. Second, family class sponsored spouses with temporary resident status and their dependent children, they will also be allowed. Spouses, common law partners of most work permit holders and their dependent children. Now, this is where is very, very interesting. So if you are currently an international student in Canada, or if you are a work permit holder, closed work permit, open work permit holder, both, your spouses, they are holding open work permits, right? Now, if their open work permits are expiring between 1st of August to 31st of December, then they will be eligible to get an 18-month extension on their work permit through the simplified process. Now, are there any conditions involved in this? We don't know yet. That hasn't been announced. So I guess new, or rather more information about this will come through over the next few weeks. But this is brilliant. This could, in some cases, mean that even if your status is expiring, let's say you're on a study permit, it's expiring, and you're thinking how to get your spouse's open work permit extended. Well, now you have this option. Or if you were already on a closed work permit, especially for IT candidates, right? For people who are working on ICT closed work permit. And for whatever reason, God forbid, you were laid off, you were thinking, I need to leave. Now, what do I do? I will not get an extension. What will happen to my spouse, my children? Well, hey, there is this option now, this 18-month extension policy, which your spouses can avail. Brilliant, I would say, but I'm not sure how it helps the spouses or the primary applicants whose status might be expiring. We have to wait and watch the additional criteria, conditions that might come up with this. Have to see how that is expanded and provided. So let's keep our eyes, ears open for that. But in the meantime, I would say the fact that this is being extended to the spouses as well, this makes it a great option. Back to our presentation. IRCC has now approved 4 additional new English language tests for international students applying under the STS Student Direct Stream. These 4 tests, additional tests. So IELTS Academic is still there. Obviously, that is not getting cancelled. The 4 new additional tests that will be effective 10th of August 2023. Those are CELPIP General, CAEL, CAEL. These both are offered by Paragon Institution. PTE, Pearson Test for English Academic, and TOEFL IBT test. Again, this will give a lot of international students a brilliant option, because there are a lot of international students out there who are applying for Australia, New Zealand, where they accept PT, but then they have to take IELTS separately for Canada, and they don't want to do that. Costs more money when they can use the same examination for both countries, in sometimes more than one country, right? So great news for the international students. Mind you, this is effective 10th of August 2023. So if you have CELPIP General, CALE, PT, Academic, TOEFL, IBT, and or IELTS, then you are done. You can now apply for STS using these English language exams tests. This is good. The median hourly wage for 2023 temporary foreign worker program, this is going to be increased effective 31st of May. So if you are a person who's applying for an LMIA, then you have to understand that the temporary, or rather the median wages are being increased from 31st of May. So make sure you put in your applications before that date. The list of the salaries that are being increased are already mentioned on the website. You can take a look at that as well. This is in reference to a case law. The Federal Court of Canada has ruled in the favor of IRCC, where one person had filed for a judicial review. So the background is that somebody's study permit was refused, in which IRCC gave an explanation that the reason we're refusing your application because you have scored low academic marks, and therefore your previous academic results are low, and therefore we do not think you would be able to continue your education in Canada, hence we are refusing your application. This person filed for judicial review. They challenged the decision of IRCC in the federal court, and then federal court has ruled that it is reasonable for the visa officer to refuse a study permit application if the applicant has low grades in a previous program of study, which is in core courses or core subjects that are related to the intended program of study in Canada. Now, the implications are that the visa officers do have extensive discretion to refuse the application, but they should be able to give you a reasonable explanation as to why they have refused your application. And yeah, so in this case, if you have low academic scores previously in the subjects which could be the core subjects for your intended program in Canada, then you may get a refusal from IRCC. This is something which you should take note of if you're planning to preparing to study in Canada. IRCC has announced $65 million in funding extensions to service provider organizations across Canada. These are settlement services, including pre-arrival services for racialized newcomer women and language training for newcomers, especially in Francophone minority communities. Canada continues to invest aggressively in the funding of providing more and more facilities, benefits to people who are coming to Canada as newcomers so that they can quickly settle into their new lives. So good job there. Settlement services are free and managed at the municipal, provincial, and federal level. The kind of services include help with daily life in Canada, help in finding a job, help preparing for the citizenship test, language training and assessments, job-specific language training, specific services for refugees and women, finding a mentor as a newcomer or becoming a mentor for a newcomer. All these are offered for free by the newcomer immigrant settlement services, which if you are in Canada, you should certainly take advantage of. That is all I had for the presentation. Thank you for connecting with us. Social media links, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok as well. Choose your fancied platform, and then of course share, subscribe, follow, and do all of that, and then make this platform grow bigger so that more people can get advantage just the way you are getting one now. All right, let's start with your questions. I guess a lot of you are here because of that. Sahil, thank you for the super chat, but unfortunately there is nothing there in the question. If I am applying under CEC category with spouse, can I apply for spouse TRV under the new policy after AOR? Well, no, the new policy does not apply to you. It applies only to people who have applied for, or rather who applied for PR under the spousal sponsorship. So the new policy will not be applicable to you, but you can definitely apply for TRV. That doesn't stop you from applying for TRV. Also, if you're currently in Canada and on a CAC, so which basically means either you have a study visa or you have open work permit or a postgraduate work permit or a closed work permit, which basically means you can also apply for an open work permit for your spouses, which in my opinion have a much higher and a better chance for approval. So give that a shot. Ankur, thank you for the super chat. Applied for postgraduate work permit Jan 6 along with spouse work permit extension, child visit study visa extension. Visa expired on 30th April. No update. Shall we wait or do flag polling? Are the group applications taking more time? The group applications do not specifically need to take more time, but the average processing time is about 5 to 6 months as of now. So that is the reason why it's taking time. But you can, because you're on implied status, you can continue to work, you can continue, your children can continue to study. There is no problem with that. I would say give it another month. It should come through. I'm seeing a lot of applications which were submitted in December late and early January are now coming along. I mean, I've seen a lot of our clients as well. So if you can afford to wait a month, do that. If not, then at some point of time, yes, you can flag poll and you can request CBSA that you have waited for a very long time, you haven't got your application, and that your employer insists on having a work permit, otherwise they will not extend the job to you, and therefore CBSA may make that provision or may allow you to apply for a work permit at the port of entry. In a lot of cases, they may not, because you've already applied online, and they might tell you to wait for it. So it's at their discretion, but yes, you can do that. Siddhant, thank you for the super chat. I got my ITA, did my medical on 4th of May, went to India for 21 days in March. Do I need to repeat IME medical test for CEC because I left Canada? Nope, you don't have to. The fact that you did your medicals on 4th May, you went to India, doesn't matter. The condition is that at the time you submit your PR application, you are inside Canada and your medicals are no more than 5 years old. As long as you comply with these two conditions, you can submit your applications using your old medicals, and you don't really need to do your medicals again. That's what it means. How long does it take to receive an AOR for spousal sponsorship? Well, at this point of time, it can take anywhere between 2 to 3 months. That has been the processing time that we are looking at. Some of our clients have received it within 2 months. Some of them had to wait for 3 to 3.5 months. A lot depends. It basically means that the sponsor has to first be approved. And the sponsor, if the sponsor does not have any ongoing criminal convictions, criminal charges, if you did not avail any social benefits or you did not have any immigration loans in the past, then you will go through. But if you have anything of this similar sort, or if your name matches with a person who could be a person of interest to the police authorities, then that could have a bit of a hold up and it might get delayed a little bit. But once they have clarified that, in some cases, they might even ask you to get your RCMP PCC done as a sponsor. And once they've confirmed that, then it goes through, then you are approved as a sponsor. Once you're approved as a sponsor, then they start processing your application. They send you a file number, they send you the confirmation of approving you as a sponsor, and then they start your file for the PR application for your spouse. Okay, I think I'm on the wrong side of things. Hi. Okay. My son in Ontario, after 12th standard, is it hard to get PR? It is. It definitely is very difficult to get PR. Let me show you what I'm saying. It's not about being in Canada after 12th standard or not. Everything is a points game at this point of time. If you don't have sufficient points, then you will realize it can get quite difficult. I am just opening up my Twitter account because I did tweet just this morning, and I will share it with you here. So if you're not following me on Twitter, you should, because I tweet a lot, I think, sometimes more than I think. So this morning I said that, did you know Canada has issued more than 1 million work permits and work permit extensions in 2022? And there are also more than 800,000 international students in Canada in 2022. What this basically means is there are almost 2 million people in Canada as temporary residents. That is as of 2022. Obviously, a lot of these people leave Canada, they become permanent resident. But then as the time passes, new international students come, new workers come. And mind you, as of 31st of January this year, Canada also allowed work permits for spouse open work permits for all categories of work permit holders. So for example, earlier, if you were in Canada on a work permit under NOC category 0 OAB, 0AB. Now you were not allowed to get your spouse open work permit. Then that changed from 31st of January, whereby NOC 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all tier categories were allowed to have their spouses as open work permit holders in Canada. That basically means more people were eligible to get more people to come to Canada. And then this year they allowed for the postgraduate work permit 2023 extension policy, which basically means even if your postgraduate work permit is expiring in 2022 late and in 2023, then you could get an extension, which basically means this number of 1,075,000 will only grow. This will only be bigger number for this year. And that tells me that when you have so many people in Canada, and as I was going further down, PR quotas for 2023 is 266,210. PR quotas for 2024 is 281,135. PR quotas for 2025 is 301,250. This is for the economic pathways. This does not include your refugees, protected person, family sponsorships. No, not those people, because economic pathways are the only pathways under which anybody who is in Canada as an international student, as a foreign worker, or anybody outside as an international student, out as a foreign worker or looking to come to Canada, economic pathways, quotas is what they should be looking at. So if this year you have only 266,210 quotas for this year to become PR, and there are nearly 2 million people who are temporary residents in Canada, do the math, okay? It's about 10%. 2 million people, 200,000 spots. 10% is the only available quotas for the PR pathway. Just think about it. How easy or difficult do you think it's going to be? It's a rat race. Only if you have a job offer is it going to help. I mean, as it is for people who are outside Canada, having a job offer is becoming so critical to get a PR. Even inside Canada, if you do not have the right kind of work experience, for example, Ontario's skilled trade stream, you have 1 year of work experience, you're good to go. But other than that, any other stream of Ontario for inside Canada, you need a job offer. Okay, we're not talking about master's graduate stream, but employer job offer stream, international student stream, they all, the in-demand skill stream, they all need a job offer, which basically means you need the employer support, which only tells you that yes, things are going to get more and more and more difficult. They already are. They will get even more difficult. So it's not about being in Canada after the 12th standard and then completing your studies. It is all about you knowing your options in advance, you understanding what your options are, and then aligning yourself so that you're ready to take advantage. So for example, if you're in Canada after the 12th standards, completing 2 years of diploma means your CRS score is not going to be high. You cannot compete with a CRS score of 488. You can't get it. Okay. Then you need either an LMIA closed work permit, or you need an LMIA 50 points, or you have to have very high IELTS scores or CELPIP scores, or you get your 1 year of work experience in the skilled trade category, so you can apply under the Ontario trade stream. These are the ways you will go about doing. Or of course, you change the province, go to the Atlantic provinces. In the Atlantic provinces, look for AIP employer. Again, you need employer support. Without employer support, it's not going to happen. You find an employer who can help you go through AIP or through the PNP of those Atlantic provinces. But you need to first be working there for at least 1 year, in most cases, to have that job experience in which you can then apply or request the employer to give it to you. As I said, employer support is increasingly the only way to get your PR pathway. It's a fantastic, sensible decision on TRV for ongoing. I agree. I mean, this was long due. I do not know why they hadn't done it in such a long time. Applied for PR, it says in process. When can I receive? I don't know when you can receive. You can check for the processing times on the IRCC website. The processing times on an average are 6 months. Of course, they are not hard and fast. They can vary a bit, but this shows that you are within the processing time. So maybe a month or two at most, you should be through. You can also order the GCMS notes to understand if there are any issues in your application which can get struck. So yeah, you can look at that as well. Any opportunity for Afghan citizens? Well, there are, no, there is nothing giving no specific exemptions at this point of time. You would have to apply under the economic pathways if you're applying, unless you were part of the GAC team, and then you could apply as a protected person. But other than that, as an Afghan citizen, you are just going to apply for economic pathway just like everybody else. In APR, can parent or 17-year-old sister be added as a dependent? No. In APR, your family, which can be a dependent, only means your spouse, partner, or your own dependent children below the age of 22. Can a spouse of a working Canadian permanent citizen apply for open work permit? Can you shed some light on an open work permit eligibility, please? I did that in detail, didn't I? Yeah, a lot of it. I submitted CEC's Canada PR application. Can you let me know how long does R10 completeness check take? At this point of time, it's taking anywhere between 25 to 45 days for the R10 check for express entry. What would be the probable approval chances for spousal TRV? Would there be any separate portal for that? No, the portal is the same. You will just, in your letter of explanation, add dual intent and the fact that you already have your AOR, add a copy of your AOR, add your dual intent, and explain that you are a spouse of a sponsor who's a permanent resident in Canada, who has applied for a permanent residence for you. And this is the file number, this is the approval in principle, which they call. And hopefully within 30 days, you should get an approval for your TRV as well. I got a nomination from Ontario, but when I got an ITA, I was rejected after AOR as my French test is expired. Mistake from them as my French is my second language, still eligible and nominated solution. I honestly can't tell you because there is a lot of things that I don't know about because we don't know who rejected you. You're saying I got an ITA. After AOR as my French test is expired. Are you referring to rejection from IRCC? Now, from IRCC, if you got rejected, what you have to first check is your eligibility. Did you still score 67 points? If you did not score 67 points, then without the AOR or without your French test, then there is a possibility it was rejected. So you first need to check whether that was applicable. Now, you don't have to worry about it too much. What you can do is you can retake your French exam, have your French exams ready, create a new express entry profile, inform Ontario, request Ontario to give you the nomination in the new express entry profile, explaining what was the problem. Once you have the new nomination, you will be back in the express entry pool with the 600 additional points and you will get your IT in the next draw. So it all is not lost yet. Was asked proof of funds, had submitted on 19th, a placeholder in GCK account. Yesterday got an update stating POF not received. I can see new placeholder to upload. Is it common? What to do? Well, upload the proof of fund documents again. Yes, it can happen. IRCC's GCK system is quite glitchy and these things sometimes do happen. So yeah, not to freak out, not to worry. Just provide your documentation again and they will go through. Did my medical on 4th of May. We did this already. 1 year Canadian experience completed on 15th of July. Can I open my profile now under CEC saying 1 year CEC because I can provide 1 year of work experience by ITA time? Any issues? I wouldn't do that by saying I am already eligible in express entry. I would let the system make that choice. Instead, use your work experience outside Canada to create an express entry profile. Show your Canadian work experience as ongoing. System will automatically calculate and give you those points. Can you share some information on spousal TRV as per? Yes, I think we did that, right, in detail. I'm waiting for my decision on PNP express entry. I'm inland, wife outland. Can I apply for TRP as per yesterday's announcement? Express entry applicants are not eligible for yesterday's announcement of TRV application. You can still apply for TRV. You can still express dual intent, but you are not eligible under the public policy that was announced yesterday. That is specifically for people who have applied for permanent residence under spousal sponsorship applications. But as I said, you can certainly apply for a TRV. That is not a problem. Yeah, I was just sort of taking a look. Just let me share my screen. Yeah, you see this? It says faster temporary residence processing for spousal applicants. Spousal applicants here refer to people who have submitted an application for spousal sponsorship. It does not mean if it meant for all economic immigration applications, then it would have said all economic immigration applications or permanent residence applications. It says for spousal applicants, and therefore anybody who hasn't applied for spousal sponsorship, they are not. As I said earlier, if you are currently in Canada, you probably have a status as a student or a foreign worker, then you can apply for an open work permit for your spouse, which has a much higher rate of approval. US visa rejected after first interview. As a minor, father called US consulate, got interview next day, visa was granted, and the same, I filed my PR app with LOE, unsure as it counts as visa rejection. Anytime you get a rejection, it is a rejection or a refusal. You should always state so the way it is. Hello, I have 10 years of experience outside Canada. However, I could collect experience letters for 3 years. Can I show 3 years experience? Do I have to explain 3 years is enough for CEC? Well, yes, of course, you can claim points for 3 years. 3 years is more than enough. You don't need any letter of explanation. All other periods of work for which you're not claiming points will go in your personal history. No documentation or explanation is needed. For some reason, my brother's student visa got rejected. It is not for some reason. It is for specific reasons. You need to order GCMS notes to understand. Is it going to affect my PR approval? No, absolutely not. Your brother's study visa application has got nothing to do with your PR application. It will absolutely continue in a very objective manner. Don't worry about it at all. Okay, not a single update in GCMS, only criminality is passed. Well, as I said, 6 months is an average processing time. You will have to wait, or you can also call IRCC for other additional updates. Submitted declaration in Canada on 24th, waiting for ECOPR. Any suggestion? What is the timeline? You said 24th of May. That's not even 3 days yet. Patience, my friend, patience. It could take 2 weeks at most at this point of time. Spouses outside Canada waiting for the decision on family class applications can now come on a visitor visa and then apply for open work permit. Is that correct? That is absolutely correct. And that is how you would go about doing this and going through this whole process. I mean, why couldn't they allow people to apply for work permits already? I mean, why create this additional barrier? Just allow them to apply for open work permits, for God's sake. Why first say, no, first apply for TRV, then you come inside Canada, then you apply for open work permit? Why create so many steps? Create more work for yourself, create more work for people. IRCC, I tell you. Primary knock was 3 years back, but now in different knock, similar field. Will that be a problem in OINP, HCP? How to currently justify when invited for older knock? No, it is not a problem. Ontario needs you to have at least 1 year of work experience within the last 5 years for the human capital priority stream. So if that is your knock code, it happened within the last 5 years, 1 year work experience, you can still use that. That is not a problem. Ontario issuing NOI for health workers, however, processing time is huge. What's your intake? Application in HCP stream stuck at DIP state. Chandan Kapoor, be thankful. Just be thankful. Attitude of gratitude is what is needed. You know, earlier, Ontario was not even inviting people for healthcare. And healthcare professionals, technically, practically, realistically, had no real option except for express entry. The fact that Ontario has started doing this is something which we are all thankful for. So if they are now taking a little bit more time, well, at least you have an application in progress, right? So let's just be thankful for that and move on with that. Because, you know, we can complain about everything. We complain about weather, we complain about politics, we complain about the country's economy, we complain about the exchange rate, we complain about everything. Just, you know, the fact that you have an ITA, the fact that you have your application in progress, that's good enough. Just wait for it. Let the process take its time. I know it can be frustrating. I'm not going to, you know, deny you that. Frustration is definite. Patience is what is needed. Just knowing the fact that you have a NOI versus not having one at all because it was never something that they were looking to do earlier. That by itself should sort of say that, yes, thankfully you're there. You have 1 foot in the door. Once you get your nomination, you're already at DIP, which basically means you can get your nomination any point of time. Once you get your nomination, then you will go through and then you can all live happily ever after in Canada. So I wish you all the best, and I hope this comes through soon because I can understand frustrations can get very irritating on some days. I got my job through ROAIESEC in Winnipeg. I got my IAC visa last week, flying to Canada. My job for 1 year is paid internship. Can I apply for PR after 1 year or MPNP? Well, if you are eligible, yes, you can. You need to check your scores. You need to check the PNP programs to see your eligibility. And if you are, then absolutely you can. I'm applying under CEC category with spouse. Can I apply for spouse? I think I just answered that at least twice or thrice already now. Okay. Can we apply for spousal TRV if we have received the AOR on the spousal sponsorship application? Yes, you can. Now you can, and they are claiming it would take 30 days to process. So 30 days is good. I would take it any day. I am eligible for spouse open work permit extension. My husband fall under PGWP extension. Now, which category I need to apply? Open work permit extension. I would say just wait till 1st of August because that's when this whole thing will start. And then you will be able to apply through the simplified process. If you want to apply along with your spouse, you can do that as well. How long does eligibility review take for visit visa, which started? There is no specific timeline as such. It could take any amount of time. Eligibility review just basically means that at some point of time, they will start working on your application. Once they do start working on your application, they are done within a few minutes and they do a decision immediately after that. My score is 64. My agent has filed for Saskatchewan and I'm a finance professional. What are the chances? First of all, you have to check whether your agent is licensed in Saskatchewan to handle your application. Most of them are not. A lot of applications get refused for misrepresentation because their agents are not licensed and they're not allowed to do that. That's number one. Number two, score of 64. I will be very honest with you. As a finance professional, I would be quite skeptical with that score. Try and see if you can improve your score. How much time it will take to sponsor non-accompanying spouse? Standard processing time is 12 months for a spousal sponsorship application. If someone has foreign work experience from 13th May to 12th May, 1 day less in 2 years, does IRCC consider as 1 or 2 years? If it is not 2 years, it is not 2 years. However, 13th May to 12th May would practically be 2 years. I mean, if you calculate the days, including the 13th May and the 12th May, then it will be actually 2 years. Okay, we still have Mr. Chandan worrying about DIP state. 6 months for ADR on Saskatchewan job offer stream, no update. Sydney office, no update, no file moving for 6 months. Is it going to be new case of DM 10032 for whole office? Well, no, you can always order GCMS notes to understand what the issue is. But if you had an ADR and if you have provided the document, then you should be fine. It takes time. If you're in the job offer stream, that processing time is almost 2 years. So patience is something which would be tested throughout the process. Open work permit of 1.5 year has been announced. If the principal applicant gets a 3 years postgraduate work permit, can the open work permit holder apply again for a 3-year extension, assuming the 1.5 year open work permit extension has been given already? Well, there are still a lot of things that IRCC needs to clarify. But the idea is if the open work permit is expiring between 1st of August and 31st of December, then that person is eligible for an 18-month extension. So as long as you can apply that formula, you will know how much extension you can get. When will IRCC implement PTE exam for express entry draws? It is anticipated towards the later part of this year. So once that announcement is available, I guess we will all be talking about it. Proof of funds, I think we already responded to that. I got ITA in February, COPR last week. For past 1 year, your YouTube channel was of great help in various stages of my PR. Oh, congratulations, Arun Kumar. We are so happy. This is great stuff. Well done. Wish you all the very best. And I hope that you have a great life ahead. Misrepresented application possible to turn over? Yes, it is possible if you file for judicial review within 60 days of receiving a decision if you're outside Canada. And if you have substantial evidence to show that you did not misrepresent in the first place. My work experience letter says I was paid full-time with 40 hours per week. Is this enough for work requirements or total hours calculation required? Well, this is fine but they will still calculate 30 hours per week, not 40 hours. The calculation is always 30 hours. So as long as you calculate 30 hours and you work for 1 year, then you would be claiming points for 1 year. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in again today. Please follow me on Instagram. We talk a lot about different things there as well. Of course, if you wish to make an appointment one-on-one, then this is the link. You're most welcome. Click on this link. We can talk about your application, your queries, your situation one-on-one to give you a better insight. If you wish to avail any of our services, we do obviously. We are a full-fledged immigration company after all. We handle all application types completely. TRPs, representing you to IRB, detention reviews, refugee cases, express entry, of course, PNP, study permits, postgraduate, all kinds of applications. Drop us an email. We'll be happy to work with you if that's what you're looking to. Do subscribe, do share the video, do like on it, do hit the book button so that it can get out to more and more people. Thank you once again. Stay safe, take care, and I shall see you next time. Bye.